Hello chess friends and welcome to the Out of Chess channel and welcome back to our Queen's Gambit Declined series. So in this series we're following this very nice opening from White and from Black's perspective, and today we're continuing with our Queen's Gambit Declined studies and the so-called Vienna Variation. So the Vienna Variation we have seen so far with some beautiful tactical motifs, and we have seen also so far in the series a very important strategical variation that you can choose to play also from White and also from Black's perspective. And today we're analyzing really which is in my opinion one of the most tactical lines of the Vienna Variation, which is now the continuation with the move e4, which was very open, and the game becomes really brutal with tactical shots all over the board. And there is a line I think that Black will play many times. It's really a wild gambit line by White, and Black should basically try to avoid this line, but still I think many times you'll face this line because Black is hoping to get away with murder, sort of. He'll take your two pawns and then hopes that he could defend his position. But actually this is a line that you have to know by heart, even because if you don't know this line you get smashed in an early stage of the game. So that's why in this video I'm going to show you really a great attacking method against Black's Vienna Variation. When he takes simply two pawns, when your opponent gets greedy, you have to know what's going on all over the board, because if you of course simplify the game too much and you have lost two pawns, then of course you probably lose the game. So that's why it's very important to know this particular line. So let's check out now what is again the Queen's Gambit Declined, what is the Vienna Variation of the Queen's Gambit Declined, and what is basically the most brutal and most tactical line of the Vienna Variation. So here we can play of course the move d4, knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to f3, and actually this Vienna Variation you reach many times all of the anti-Nimzo or counter-Nimzo Indian setups. Here after move knight to f3 we have d5, and the game suddenly transposed now into the Queen's Gambit Declined. So we have now the move knight to c3, and now comes the actual Vienna Variation move, which is now the move d takes c4. We have already explained some strategies and some tactics out of this line. So as I said, if you want to get a better understanding what's going on now in the continuation of the series, please check out our series from the beginning, part 1, part 2, part 3, and so on. So here after move d takes c4, my recommendation is to play a very aggressive e4, and this game becomes now really complicated. But still we want to know what's going on the board, because what Black should not do is of course play passive move bishop to e7. Now after bishop to c4 you see White is continuing the game with the dominant central position. These two pawns are controlling the center, the knights on c3 on f3 are on perfect squares, and also the bishop is suddenly becoming an active piece, and also this bishop has the flexibility to maybe be included on g5 or maybe on f4 into the game. So White is really a brutal setup, and I would always love now to play the position here from White's perspective, and then kingside castling, queen to e2, rook to e1, maybe rook from a to d1. So again you would build I think a very nice attacking formation. But here after move e4, a must move now for Black is to move bishop to b4. And now in the continuation of the series we're analyzing also some good lines for Black, but I wanted to show you, as I said, a brilliant line for White. It's a gambit line in which you sacrifice two pawns. We have to play now the move bishop to c4, knight to e4, and after casting Black can play now knight to f6, retreat, can also play knight to c3, b takes c3, and now what would be a good continuation in my opinion here for Black is simply to retreat to e7. But sometimes, and probably many times, you see your opponent get greedy because he will maybe take out even this pawn, and from this point on you really have to know what you're doing, because this is not good for Black. And if you don't get something out of this, if you don't find a good compensation for the loss of two pawns, you will get probably smashed. So that's why we have to now be very active. The only good move is of course rook to b1, and it's a must move because your rook was hanging. But the beauty about this move is not that you have only escaped from the attack of the bishop. The cool part about this move is that you have taken a very important square for the bishop. So the bishop would left of course to come to b4 and then maybe back to e7, and okay, as I said, Black would hope for, I got away with murder, I took two pawns and now I retreat with my bishop, and suddenly I could maybe have a good defender. But you see now the beauty of the move rook to b1 is that we have taken this very important squares, and now what Black could maybe do is to move c6. this is a line that black plays many times, and he's hoping for now that he could play maybe something like bishop to a5, and then maybe to reroute the bishop here to c7, and maybe then afterwards this bishop has at least some kind of a decent activity, and then he's hoping for to get maybe something like knight to d7, knight to f6, and okay, this is maybe playable, but you have to be now very active. You have to know what you're doing now. We're simply chasing the bishop all over the board. Rook to b3. Again, black has now several choices. Black can play now the move bishop to a5, and now again a must move here by white, knight to g5. This is really brutal because the beauty of the move rook to b3, and you see now the bishop on c3, when the bishop took the pawn on c3, became an object of white's attack. So we got extra tempi against the bishop, and now with the move knight to g5, look at this attacking formation. So this is something that you want to get out of the Vienna variation here from white's perspective. Okay, we have lost 2 pawns, but now with the move rook to b3, knight to g5, look at this formation. As I said, bishop on active square, knight really on an active square. Here the queen can be included very easily into the attack, so the queen will come to h5, g4, I'm not sure, maybe to f3, wherever you maybe have the opportunity to attack. This bishop, although hasn't played so far, still has a great activity because it's already targeting towards the king side. Now this rook maybe can be included with rook to d1, rook to d3, maybe rook to h3, but this rook on b3 is now really a brutal rook because it can be maneuvered to h3, to f3, wherever you like, maybe even to g3, maybe to attack the g file, because the problem for black is here now that you cannot castle, you cannot secure the king by castling. You get a beautiful Greek gift tactic with the move knight to h7. This is the beauty of the sharp line, king to h7, rook to h3. You have to go with your king again back into the defense, and now with the move queen to h5, here the checkmate is a threat. You have to play something like f6. But now a beautiful idea is here, bishop to e2, a very calm move, but in the continuation maybe black could maybe try to get the queen into the game, but now it's very important to kick away the queen, queen to d4, queen to h7. Now after king to f7, now you see the bishop comes here on h5. That was the beauty about the move bishop to e2. Now the maneuver of the bishop causes new tactical problems for black. So as I said, don't worry so much about the about your material, because as we said, the activity that you get is a beautiful compensation. So again, here after move rook to b3, bishop to a5, knight to g5, what black could maybe try is b5, maybe to kick away your very active bishop, but it's not really time to retreat. You have to sacrifice even further pieces if you want to stay active in the game. Now a rook to f3 is again a beautiful possibility. Again, I'm pointing out, if black castles, what should we do? Again, of course, the beautiful Greek gift tactic with the move knight to h7, and then rook to h3, queen to h5 again, and we will reach a similar position. So here, as I said, really wild things can happen in an early stage of the game. So b5 is not even working, even if black takes, of course, the pawn, the bishop on b5, we play simply the fork, knight to f7, and it's again completely lost game here for black. Really wild things. As I said, I really love this line because the formation that you get for the compensation for the 2 lost pawns is really brutal, especially this rook on f3 that's dancing all over the board. It can be included really beautifully into the game. So here after move, let's go back, after move rook to b3, what black could maybe try is an idea of queen to a5 to protect the bishop and maybe stay with this bishop a little bit longer there. But again, I'm pointing out this bishop is not good there. We should try first of all to kick away this queen. Still after queen to b4, this rook hasn't lost any activity because it can be always maneuvered all over the 3rd rank. So although you have placed it now on the edge of the board, but still it can shift over and maybe can be included on h3 again. So again, beautiful stuff. So now it's time to again reroute our bishop to d3. Again, kingside castling is not a possibility. What should we do? You know the grip, of course, bishop to h7, a great gift, knight to g5, queen to h5. Again, it's a lost game. So here maybe black could try knight to d7 here instead of castling to get new defenders into the game. As I said in the beginning, black's ideas could be maybe to get knight on f6, and then he could build some kind of a defensive setup. But this is not working because, again, queen to c2, you see, we're attacking simply further the bishop. You should always consider this bishop as your target. There is always something around this bishop, because the bishop, when the bishop takes the pawn on c3, it is a little bit loose on the board. It becomes an object of white's attack. Now you can maybe try bishop to d4, but this is not working. Rook to a4, you see, this is a dirty, beautiful trap. Now the bishop is hanging. The only way to prolong the game here for black is to play something like queen to c3, rook takes d4, queen to c2, and now bishop to c2. Rook to d1 is now opportunity, bishop to f4, bishop to d6. So although we have to admit it, black has here 3 pawns for the lost piece, but it's not a good position. It's completely losing here for black for sure. So let's see now different ideas what black could do. Here we'll reach again the same position, e4, my recommendation. So this is the line that we'll also analyze in the future, also for with some better lines for black. Black, as I said, doesn't have to play the game like this. Knight to e4, knight to c3, b takes c3. Again, I'm pointing out bishop to e7 or maybe bishop to d6 are normal ideas. Bishop to c3 is not good because of this line, rook to b1, with the idea to play rook to b3. Now what we can maybe face is a better method here of blacks. We have seen c6 is, in my opinion, not working. It's simply too passive. c5 could be now a decent idea, but still even this idea is not working. You should know what you're doing now, because if you don't react correctly in this particular line, you will probably lose the game. We have lost 2 pawns. We have this state, so now it's again time to be active. So after move c5, the idea is clear. Black, we have seen now in our previous examples, has the problem of the bishop on c3. The bishop gets more and more an object of white's attack. So that's why what black is hoping for is to play something like bishop to d4 and at least trade it off somehow, maybe to get rid of it, knight to d4, and at least we don't have so many worries with the bishop. But now it's time to be very, very active. We have to include now all the pieces in the attack. When you don't know sometimes what to do in chess, always consider to include all of your pieces in the attack. So that's why bishop to g5 must move here by white. Now what black could do maybe is an idea of f6, and it may seem to you that it's a strange idea, because what they're doing, man, your bishop is hanging and still the pawn is here hanging. So what's the point about this line? Now after move f6, we should simply proceed with the normal move queen to b3. If you take, of course, here f takes g5, then we can simply play queen to c3, and if you take, of course, then of course the knight will come into the game. The battle around the square e6 will be lost, so it's something again that black should probably resign. So here what black could do is, of course, to play simply bishop to d4, but again knight to d4, this is perfectly fine. C takes d4, and now we simply take out this pawn. This is very important because we're not allowing here black to castle. If you take, of course, something like f takes g5, then we play rook to e1. That's now the beauty of this line. You can maybe try king to f8, but now with bishop to c8, queen to c8, now queen to f3 is going to happen, and now then afterwards something like queen to d5, and this is game over. Rook to b7 is an opportunity. So too many dirty tactics can happen here in an early stage of the game. So as I said, after move bishop to d4, we simply play knight takes d4, bishop to e6. You could also try here, of course, c takes d4, maybe to stuck the bishop here, maybe to stay with the bishop on c3, but again bishop to e6, even after bishop to e6, queen to e6, even if you cover yourself, then you see this one, queen to c8. You can play maybe something like this, king to f7, but now with queen takes rook on h8, this is completely winning. So you can maybe try here queen to d8, but now comes a beautiful move, rook to e1. We sacrifice even here the rook for the exchange. After rook to e1, again king to f7, you see now queen to e6, king to g6, and now comes a beautiful checkmate sequence, knight to e5. You can maybe take out the bishop, but now queen to g4, and here after move knight to f7, it would be a stunning checkmate. Really wild stuff. As I said, in an early stage of the game, here after move c takes d4, we take a bishop to e6, queen to e6. If black covers, then of course you can also try something like this, queen to b7. So as I said, too many tactical traps. Rook to e1, for instance, we have seen, it's really wild. So really wild methods that you can apply in an early stage of the game. So this was our analysis after move bishop to f6. What black could maybe do instead of this f6 move is to play something like queen to c7 or queen to d7. Queen to d7 is slightly better, but the problem about the move queen to c7 is this move, d5. D5, D5, we have to know this sequence by heart. If we don't know what we're doing, as I said, black will get out of this mess and will win the game for sure, because he has taken already 2 of your pawns. So now d5 is very important, because for instance, if e takes d5 happens, then we play queen to e2, then black needs to cover, and here after move bishop to d5, if black castles, then bishop to b7 is simply winning the game. That's the beauty of the activity of white pieces. All of the pieces are playing really beautiful harmony. And okay, maybe black can somehow hang on to this position. He'll probably lose the rook, but it's, I think, a playable game here for white, and the evaluation here is already much better here for white. So this is something that you have to know after move queen to c7 or queen to d7, d5, d5, d5. You have to play the move opening the center. Now, for instance, if black castles, we can play d6. d6 is really beautiful, because now after queen to d7, as I said in the beginning, also queen to d7 is also an opportunity. So that's why you don't want to play queen to c7 when you have to play queen to d7 then afterwards. So you could have played queen to d7 immediately, but now after move queen to d7, now rook to b3. Again, this beautiful tactical idea to simply chase away the bishop. If your opponent wants to maybe play something like bishop to d4, knight takes d4, we have a c takes d4, and now again queen to h5. Here you can maybe try e5, but now bishop to e7, you see again white is playing in such a beautiful harmony. Rook to h3, really beautiful ideas. Queen to f5, maybe could an opportunity takes, but now we can take out the rook. Also this one, this pawn is hanging, so it's, I think, a position that you could resign. So let's go back. After move bishop to g5, your opponent could try immediately the move queen to d7, but again we play simply d5. If e takes d5, again, don't worry. Here what black is hoping for is, of course, that you take queen to d5, bishop takes d5, and okay, suddenly more pieces are traded off, and black is hoping for that the queens are off the board, and then the big game is not so tactical anymore. But here after move d5 and e takes d5, we play again this move queen to e2, because if black covers now with the move queen to e6, then we can play bishop to b5. Then if bishop to d7 happens, then we play queen to d3. And now we're threatening some ideas of rook to e1 again. For instance, if black retreats with the bishop, then we play simply rook to e1, bishop takes, rook takes, and now you have to take here in the continuation. We can even play knight to e1, and then afterwards the pieces will be traded off. Even if c4, then of course bishop to d7, king to knight to d7, and now queen to e2. You can play whatever you like. This is simply game over for black. So as I said, don't worry so much. After move queen to d7, we play d5. Now queen to e2, very important move to know. Even if black step backs maybe to f8, this is not a problem, because still we can kick away the queen. Rook from f to d1 is an opportunity to continue the pressure, but again we should notice that the bishop is a little bit loose on the board, and it becomes again an object of the attack. So the main ideas I think we have covered now in this variation. Bishop to g5 after move c5 is a must move that you have to know. Still there are many sidelines. Please check also some different possibilities, because we cannot really cover in our videos every particular move that can happen. I think we have covered the most important strategies and tactical motifs of this particular line. Please study them, because you will face many times this particular ideas. Black is hoping for, as I said in the beginning, to get away with murder, sort of. He will take 2 pawns in hopes that you maybe miss something, and you don't play the most active moves, and then he's continuing the game with maybe with 2 extra pawns. This is the way to punish him, and I think you have fun by playing this variation, because in my opinion it's really beautiful, brutal tactical line, and you have fun if you, for instance, win 2-3 games in this line. You can tell your friends about them, so about the games probably they will have beautiful tactical motifs, rook sacrifices, bishop sacrifices, knight sacrifice, maybe even queen sacrifice, who knows. But I think it's really something worth to study. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed our study of the Vienna variation of the Queen's Gambit Declined. If you want to know more about this opening, check out our previous lessons about this openings. Here's the link to the whole playlist. And if you want to study the other openings that we have covered in our Queen's Gambit Declined series, here's also the link to the whole playlist with some other opportunities like the cheat code in defense, harvest attack, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.